Okay, take-home messages from this thing. R values and U factors are related, but require some form of calculation to go from one to another. There are 3 prescriptive compliance paths in the IRC and IECC, but they trade off simplicity and flexibility. Modern energy codes have tightened, especially the opaque envelope requirements, but you can leverage the UA alternative method to alleviate some of those requirements. You can use it to make it so that it's not quite so painful. AWC has online aids for determining U factors and for using that UA alternative method at our website, awc.org. Okay? Any questions? How can I help you now? We've got about 10 minutes left, and I'd love to answer something.
All right. We've got a few questions that have come up, Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The first one is, if for the total UA method in ResCheck, what are the mandatory minimum requirements? Can the R values be lower than the prescriptive values?
So the mandatory minimums, how do I put this? So yes, the U values can be less than the mandatory. There is no real backstop per se in the total UA methodology. The closest thing they have is a backstop on the fenestrations, which says you cannot use really bad fenestrations. But as far as like the opaque portions of them, they really don't. They don't have a backstop saying you can only leverage it so far. Okay?
All right, cool. All right, our next question is, do you have wall assemblies which include the +5 continuous insulation?
Unfortunately, no. We don't have any of those yet included. That would be another area where we'd like to do some more to expand upon it. But we just don't have that at the moment.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. How about, here's another one. Where can you find climate zones in the IRC?
In the IRC, let's see. I think they're also in the IRC at the beginning, but I'm not sure. I more often use the IECC, which has them at the start of the residential and the commercial chapters. So I'm not as familiar with where they would be at in the IRC. It's really easy to find them online at like DOE and things like that, though, if you're unaware.
Great. All right. Next question. Can you show us the online calculator again and do a quick example with it?
Yeah. Let's see. So, okay, can you see the calculator now, Lori? Is that
Yep.
working out okay? Okay. So this is the online calculator right now. It's still working. So let's do a little bit stronger climate zone here. Let's do climate zone 6. So I just literally clicked on climate zone and then I picked 6, and it gave me an error message saying, hey, look, that my values were funny because I just picked a climate zone that was significantly more stringent than what I had, and so it adjusted it. So it kind of took care of that for me. And then let's do a higher fenestration percentage. Let's go up to 20 this time, okay? And let's do OSB, and let's calculate the needed wall, okay? And then let's see. So this required wall is 0.048, 0.32, and let's do, I think I've got a 0.25 window at my house. Yeah. So again, this would come out with a wall U factor right there at 0.0655, and that's what it is, and it has the options. So again, in northern climate zones, it's pretty hard to get 2x4s to work sometimes. So oftentimes you'll end up with a 2x6. Okay.
Great, thanks. All right. During the presentation, you mentioned that a few things have changed between the 2012 and the 2015 IECC. What other significant changes can we expect?
Yeah, so the 2012 and the 2015 IECC, there were the biggest thrust for the difference between the 2012 and 2015 wasn't so much to change the stringency or change the amount of energy used in the actual code, but was to increase compliance and verification and ease of use. So I think DOE did a determination and found the residential was only like a percentage or two difference in actual energy use, but the goal was to be more flexible, more user friendly. So a couple of things did change, like I mentioned, the U factors and the R values aligned a little bit better. But probably if I had to say the single biggest change was there's a new compliance path, which is known as the ERI path, or the Energy Rated Index path. What it does is it allows something like a HERS score to be used to show compliance for the IECC. But it should be noted that it does have a backstop that you can't go past. I think it's the 2009 IECC envelope provisions.
Okay, great. Another question, does the Energy UA calculator have 7/16 OSB?
Yeah, so the difference between like a 7/16 OSB and 3/8 OSB is practically none as far as the R value is concerned. So what you're looking at there is I mean, the answer is basically no. It's got what it's got, the 3/8. But for effective, how much is it really going to make a difference on your wall is very, very minimal. So it almost doesn't matter. Okay.
Okay, great. Another question here. You said the default framing factor is 25% for standard walls. Why does ResNet have it at 23%?
Okay, so that goes back to the difference in definition, right? So ASHRAE defines the framing factor as the projected wood area divided by the opaque wall area, whereas ResNet defines it as the projected wood area divided by the total wall area. So the denominator is different, with ResNet having a larger denominator because it's the gross, not the net, and so it's the same amount in the numerator. It's just the denominator's larger, so it goes down. They're actually talking about the same amount of wall. Okay. So it's kind of an apples and oranges little bit of thing.
And you mentioned that the IECC usually follows the ASHRAE convention.
Yes, yeah. More often than not, the IECC is going to follow the ASHRAE convention. I don't think the IECC talks too much about framing factors, but if you look at maybe the commentary or supporting documentation for it, more often than not, the IECC is going to follow ASHRAE convention, just because of how code has been written and goes forward with it.
All right, great. This question's a little more qualitative. What direction are the energy codes going? Obviously, you mentioned to our audience that you're on several different energy committees. What should we expect in the near future in terms of energy codes?
That's kind of it is an interesting question. I mean, my opinion is probably going to be different than other people's opinions, but I see energy codes more going towards flexibility, and yet at the same time more towards standardization. They're trying to say, look, we've gotten all these great results from from energy codes. We've really tried to get good efficient envelopes, good efficient buildings, but now we need to make sure that we're actually getting the performance out of these requirements, which means that we need to have the way of verifying that that's what we're after, that the compliance is really there. And so that may mean more standardized forms of testing, like blower door tests and things like that have to follow a certain regulation. We might not have two definitions for framing factor in the future, or something along those lines, and it might be more standardized, so we're all talking the same language and doing the same thing, so that it's not as crazy, and so that we can get it. One meeting I had they were talking about how it's not uncommon if you use two different energy programs to model the same house that you can get results differing by about 10%, and that's a large percentage. If you imagine doing a structural calculation and saying, "Oh, I'm off by 10%," that's kind of scary. So we need to make sure that we're getting more standard, reliable result from what it is, and I see that coming down a lot more.
All right, great. All right, well, I think that's all the time we've got for questions. I think we are going to send it over to Marcy now for a little bit of wrap up at the end and just a little bit of housekeeping to close things out for us.